Well, I'm going to start today and do a little bit of painting. I paint more like an oil painter than a watercolorist. But I also, after that, I'm going to show a video of my studio because my studio has encompassed the whole house. And Sandy Webster shot the video and her son edited it. So I'm very excited about that. And I believe, Ron, that they can access this video after the class if they want to show it to someone else. Okay. Okay, be with my demo. All right. So you talk about painting what you love. And as you can see, I got into my neighbor's shoe closet. And I've gone through all kinds of, I've done olives, I've done cherries, I've done liquor bottles, and right now I'm into Bismarck palms and palm trees. I've reached the point of painting where I'm not interested in painting anything unless I think I can't do it. If it's a challenge and it's going to be hard work, the more I'm turned on by it. So, and she mentioned going back in the thousands of photographs, and I do have thousands of photographs. So I don't use any so-called apps. I do have an edit button on my phone, and you have an edit button on your iPad. Everybody has one, and that's all I use to enhance the colors. So in going through my thousands of photographs, you might want to come up. Can you all see that? That was the photograph. That was the old photograph that I found. And then I printed it out and enlarged it. That's not very exciting, is it? Boring, black, gray, whatever. So then I put it into my edit button on my phone, and I played with the hue saturation, which evolved into a whole series of paintings. Okay. I've got them just like this. I have done them horizontal. I've done them vertical. And how I do that is I make black and white copies of everything. All right. And I spend a lot of time with just a regular tracing paper pad in front of a television at night. So if you can see this, I'll do it on the back of something white. You can see that I have done a little drawing that I'm going to paint today. But let's say I wanted, okay, all right, set it there. But guess what? If you do it on tracing paper, you can flip it and make the birds go in another way. I use that all the time. So this particular image evolved into a vertical. I have them horizontal. I have them in all shapes and forms. So from one old image, old black and white, nothing image, I came up with a whole bunch of different options. These are cradle boards. This is also a recent painting, and it's done from an old photograph. So don't throw anything out. So what I did, and I do it quite often when I go through my photographs, if I find one, as I said, this was the original, then I enlarged it. This is the original, then I enlarged it. And then I enhanced it on the phone. Then I traced it onto whatever size I wanted to be painting. I do a lot of cradle boards. I live in Cortez, Florida, and I'm in a gallery that is in a tourist area, and people buy cradle boards or small paintings that will fit in a suitcase that they don't have to ship. This is a cradle board. Now you can get these anywhere, but if you really dig deep on Amazon, you'll be amazed what you can find. So when I see a really good buy, I order them and I cut my paper to fit. So somewhere here, I have a cradle board of the whole, hang on a second here. So before I move on anything else, hold it up, okay? Lay it flat. There it is. Okay? So now I've painted this in a standard size, like an 11 by 14, okay? Gotcha. And then I can take that 11-14, make it bigger, make it smaller, and I save the original and I frame them. My originals are framed. These are high quality G-clay prints adhered to a cradle board with with matte medium, and then varnished with about 4 layers of varnish. I finished the last layer of varnish with a matte finish. I am going to start to paint in a minute, but I want to go through a few more things with you. So that's that.
And you use spray varnish or you put out the brush?
I use spray. I started with spray varnish and now I use the brush. I started with finishing them with wax, whatever that wax was. I bought 3 bottles of it, okay? Never used even one, because every time I waxed it and put it outside to dry, all the little no-see-ums got stuck in the wax. So one last little bit, don't ever throw out an old image. You never know what you can do with it. So I'm going to move this. There's a possible painting right there. There's that and that. And then I have, look what I did with this guy. See that? That's how I get the vibrant colors. I'm not interested in painting all those grays. So
Just from your phone?
I took that's a real good question. I was going to tell you that before, but I forgot. I put this 20-year-old photograph on my kitchen counter and take my phone and I photograph it. Now, when you play with these edit buttons, sometimes nothing happens, but then sometimes amazing things happen. You understand what I'm saying? So don't throw anything out. Always be looking at something that you think will make a great painting at some point. So that's how I started. I use the tracing paper to create my compositions. I make my own tracing paper, graphite paper. I sit in front of the television at night and watch movies and trace the images onto the paper. I've never been asked how I got an image on the paper. I either draw it, trace it, or project it. So I have a whole bunch of possible compositions. There is one of them. There's one of them. And when I flip it over, I get another version. So one photograph can lead to many things. One last thing that I'm going to show you again, 25-year-old photographs started as black and whites, not black and whites, they're color, but they're not very really colorful. Those became this. Okay? So don't just assume you can paint it once. There's several options, and your old photographs, well, my kids are going to kill me when I go to that great art room in the sky, they're just going to have a fit. So anyway, I'm going to get my original photograph out. I'm going to paint the bird for you. It's going to be this bird. I have already traced it onto a piece of paper that will fit on a cradle board, standard size cradle board. And I'll start to paint. Where am I with time, guys? We're going to start the video at about 25 minutes to 1. Right now I've got 30 minutes. How much time do I have left to paint?
30 minutes.
How long is the video going to take? 18 minutes. So I've been talking for half an hour? Really? Oh, okay. All right. All right. So, beg your pardon? Occasionally, it's not small, it's too small. Sometimes I put it in my black and white copy machine and make a enlargement and trace from the black and white. I make my own tracing, my own graphite paper with lighter fluid and graphite sticks. So the other thing I do that's kind of different, I don't paint from light to dark. I paint dark to light. So I'm going to start, and I don't do glazes. I take the paint right out of the well, sometimes with a flat brush, sometimes with a round brush. Right now, I'm going to be painting this bird right here. I have put no masking fluid on the bird, although I do that if I'm doing something with a lot of background. I'm not putting the background in today. So I'm going to take a round brush to begin with. I started this morning by dampening all my paints. I let my paints get bone dry. I have a palette just like this at my home that I leave out all the time. Calls to you like the laundry. So colors I'm going to be using to start with are cobalt blue. I'm going to use some what I call, it's red brown by Mission. I like it very much. It's very dark, deep red brown. I'm also going to be using indigo, and I'm going to join all the darks. I'm just looking for the right brush. You know, you can never find the right. So I'm going to go into a dampened pigment, and it's going to start with red brown. I'm using a flat brush. Don't ask me why. I guess so that I can get the kind of spiky little head he's got on him. So I'm a mingler. This is red brown. I'm on dry paper with a number 4 brush. I'm wishing that the number 4 brush was a 6 or an 8, but I can't seem to find one. I'm not going to waste my time. So I look at how darks connect. Now I'm taking the paint right out of the well. I'm not making any puddles. I'm looking at how these shapes connect. This shape connects to the eye. Beg your pardon? Right here. How's that? Okay, like that. So now I'm cleaning my brush off and I'm going to pick up some indigo. I'm going to darken the dark brown even more with indigo. I'm painting shape. No more glazes for me.
So if you're not doing the background today, but if you were, would you do the background first and let it dry and then paint the birds on top?
I used to do the background first, but if I screw up the painting and forget about it, I usually put it in last. I put the background in last. And I would mask, and the colors that I'm using now for sand is Potter's Pink and Burnt Sienna. Potter's Pink is quite opaque, so I water it down a lot. So when I laid this out, I took the Potter's Pink and the Burnt Sienna and mingled it on the paper, and then I covered the birds. I actually have shapes cut out that I lay on top of the bird so that when I splatter, it doesn't get on the birds. Got that? Okay. So dark to light. Now, while I'm working down here, I've got my darks in, and I've talked a little bit. I've stalled. Now I'm going into cobalt blue, and I'm putting it on. I'm going to say the thickness of the cobalt blue. Now watch what I'm doing. I'm taking the paint right out of the well, and I'm going to say it's the thickness of cream. Now, if you can zoom in there, you're going to see that the cobalt blue and the red brown by Mission have mingled together and left a soft edge. See that? Now I'm going to pick up and clean my brush off, and I'm going to go into manganese, which is a beautiful turquoise, one of my favorite colors. And I like to pick that up nice and thick. I want to get that gorgeous color in there. Now I'm seeing that my darks haven't traveled through. I didn't get my shape right. But if I go back in here with the red brown and I drop it in and it's straight pigment, I can pull that brown into the blue, create my dark shape, correct it, pull it down into the paint, into the body of the bird. So I let that all happen right on the paper. Okay? Got this a little bit wrong? You think you can't make mistakes in watercolor? I'm now adding into that area, I'm adding red brown, the thickness of toothpaste. Okay? So as I follow the dark shape down into the bird, I put the red brown in. I talk a little bit. I stall and I count to 5 or now I'm going to clean my brush off and pick up manganese, the thickness of toothpaste, and I'm going to connect that and cobalt blue to the red brown. Now I'm going to go back into the cobalt and I'm going to create this gorgeous shadow falling down the side of the bird. I see it not as, excuse me?
When you take the color out, let them know that you take that excess water out of it before you put it in the paint.
Okay, let me try to explain it a little bit better. Okay, I'm cleaning my brush off. Okay, I'm getting most of the water off with one tap. And now I'm going to pick up a little bit of permanent rose because I see this shadow right here with a little violet in it. I also see a little violet in here. One of the things that I have a tendency to do is if I don't use masking fluid, I take my pencil and put big X's on where I don't want paint, all right? So following that, I'm going to connect this shape right here. I just finished putting in, picking up paint. The brush was clean. It had water in it. I tap it once. I go on to the paper. I'm going to connect that gorgeous shadow shape. I'm leaving the lights where I want to keep it white. Back in and pick up some red brown and drop the red brown in and darken it. Darken the blue. Now, if I use thick enough paint, it doesn't run away on you. You see, I'm working more like an oil painter. When I started doing this, I thought, I'm not painting like a watercolorist. I'm painting more like a oil painter. Putting in my colors nice. Now I mingle those colors. That was cobalt blue. This is manganese. If I see a little bit of violet, I might put the violet in. I'm following shape. Nothing but shape. Any questions on that?
What paper are you using?
I'm sorry. I'm old and I'm getting hard of hearing. It's the only way to put it.
What grade paper are you using?
What paint am I using? I work on 300-pound arches natural. I cannot paint on anything else. That doesn't mean you can't, okay? It's my comfort level. So while I'm going to start a big painting and I want to be sure it's going to work, I go with what works best for me. I know when to go in and when to get out. I got myself into trouble a few weeks ago. I went up and grabbed a piece of paper out, because I have a bunch of stuff. And it turned out to be Fabriano. Oh my God. It was dreadful. Anyway, but that's not, I'm not real happy with things that, look, we all have our comfort level, right? So why make it difficult for yourself? I did very foolishly. I was in the trade show today. I can't believe I did it, but I bought some pads of Yupo because I've been watching a girl on Facebook. I've been um, following a girl on Facebook, and she's very loose. She's, and I think she's a Canadian, but anyway, I'm intrigued with it. I'm going to give it a try. That'll last about a week. I'm not, so there I'll have the blue, and now I'm going to connect the brown to it. Now, if you could zoom in and see, I'm getting soft edges because the thickness of the paint on my brush only moves so far. So let's just do a little bit of, let's put some cobalt blue in here. And I want to get a little bit more of the violet. So I put the cobalt blue in, I take the permanent rose, I drop the permanent rose into the violet. Can you see what that's doing? And that, excuse me, I am dropping the permanent rose into the cobalt blue, making a violet, okay? So once I've got these paints in, I work very much from a black and white, okay? So my blues to the violet, cobalt to the permanent rose, thick paint. And now I'm cleaning my brush off. I clean it off. I tap it because all of this has been more, I have sprayed it first, okay? Now I'm into the red brown again. So I'm dropping the red brown, the thickness of toothpaste, into the shapes of the shadows on the bird. Any questions about this? For what? For painting or for the video? Oh, 10 minutes to paint. Okay, good. All right. So all I'm doing right now is dropping in the value 8 or 9 shadows on the feathers of the bird. See that? Can be done. The secret is this. You pick up the paint, the thickness of toothpaste, you put it on the paper, you wait, maybe count to 5, and then go in with the next color and let them join right on the paper, okay?
What brand do you use?
I use different brands. I'm pretty much a Holbein girl. I use a lot of Holbein paint. And I use some Sennelier. I use some Daniel Smith, some American Journey. I'm lately into Horadam Schmenke. Horadam Schmenke makes a helio cerulean that is to die for. It's a turquoise. And they also make a Helian cerulean turquoise. They also make a red violet. So I always announce what I'm painting with. For years, I painted with Yellow Ochre by Horadam Schmenke. I was told by a wonderful girl from Texas, Karen Vernon, that yellow ochre by any manufacturer is opaque. But by Horadam Schmenke, it was less opaque. I can take a shadow on a white bird. Oh, I got it? Yeah, let me see. I can take a shadow on a white bird. Maybe that's not the best one. Okay. And I make the shadows. Well, I don't have any here. Try. Ooh, yes. Okay, all right. I mingle the shadows. I paint the shapes just the way you saw them, like I'm doing it right now. I don't want that to get dry, but right here and here, oh, I've got to push it up, right? Okay, right there, right there, right there. You can drop a yellow into a blue and a pink or a blue. You take the blue, make it slightly violet, then drop the yellow. The yellow is the sun inside the shadow. I do that all the time. So I like to paint shadows on white. I teach Zoom classes and in-person classes at Villa Serena Inn in Sarasota. It's north of the airport. I'm doing 6 Zoom classes for Cheap Joe's starting in January. And I have a sign, oh, there's a sign, but anyway, that's how I paint shadows on white. One of the last paintings I'm going to do for Cheap Joe's is the most boring thing you've ever seen. But when you start putting color into shadow, because shadows reflect the colors of what's around them and the objects that's casting the shadow. So if I see warmth, I take Yellow Ochre by Horrid M. Schminke and I drop it in after every other color is in that shadow. I drop it last because yellows tend to push all the other colors around them away. Okay? That belongs to you. So let's talk a little bit now. We've got a lighter value here. And this guy's pretty much done. All I got to do is put in some darks and some more blues. But I'm going to do the lighter value down here. This right here. So we were just talking about it. The basis of my paints is my favorite color that I can't paint without is Vertiger Blue by Hoban. And I start with Vertiger Blue. Now remember, we're doing a light, warmer shadow shape underneath the feathers, right here to here. Now I've dropped the Vertiger Blue. I take the paint right out of the well. The paint. Good. Now I'm going to drop in Permanent Rose. I'm going to change that a little bit, give it a little bit. Notice that I am avoiding the dark wet edge right there. I wait for it to get dry a little bit. Now I've put the Vertiger Blue. I'm going to go into Permanent Rose. I'm going to tint the blue. Remember, this is a shadow up under the dark feathers. Now notice how little movement I'm getting now with my brush. I got a lot of movement there because it was really wet. This is perfection, all right? Soft edge, but I don't lose everything. All right, now we're going to take a flat brush because this is wet, right? We're going to take a flat brush and we're going to go into Yellow Ochre by Horrid M. Schminke by way of Karen Vernon. I am going to, and I'm using a flat brush to drop this color because this is pretty wet. So if I take the flat brush, I get it on get the pigment out of the well on the flat brush. I'm going to tap that one time and I'm going to drop the yellow ochre into the grays. And that's how I do the shadows. Okay? Any questions? Because I believe I am over. Yes, please. And yell because I'm getting hard of hearing. Oh dear, I started with Lowell Cornell a long time ago. Not the red band, the yellow band, or the no band. This is a yellow band. And then, of course, they quit making them all. So I have a stash of those. I do like King's Art. They have some nice brushes. It's all what works for you. Okay, I like some of the what do you call it? The Prados, the Escoda Prada. I like the Escoda Prada, and I like the synthetic. This is my thing. Look, I like a bounce. You know, I like a bounce. I don't like paint and then have all the brushes going some other, you know, pigments going somewhere else. So anyway, that's how I paint. Anybody else got any questions?
Remove a line, let's say, for example.
Okay, yellow of any kind is going to trap the graphite. So be sure that you erase or lighten the graphite lines, okay, before you paint, if you're using yellow. But there is a eraser, a Sumo eraser. It's called Sumo, and it's black. And it will take the pencil lines out of dry paint. I got mine at Cheap Joe's. They come fat and thick, and they come like this, long and skinny. So they're kind of nice to use. Okay?
Can you repeat it? Repeat the name.
It's got a sumo wrestler on it, and it's black, and it's got some the paper that not tracing paper, the stuff you sanding paper. It's got some sandpaper in it, and it will take out a pencil line that's under dry paint, except for yellow. Okay. All right. Anybody else? We're going to start the video.
What tracing paper, what's the lighter fluid for? When you make your tracing paper?
I take a piece of store-bought tracing paper, the stuff you can see through. Now I'm telling you how to do it, okay? Now you get graphite sticks. I've got one right here. And you cover that tracing paper with graphite, just like this. Now I have 2 replaced shoulders because I didn't know that graphite came from hard to soft. I spent several years making my own graphite with these hard graphite sticks. This is Faber-Castell 9B. Write it down, 9B. So you cover your tracing paper with 9B, and then you go to your local 7-Eleven or gas station and get a small can of lighter fluid. You get a ball of paper towels. First of all, I will do 5 or 6 at a time. When my tracing paper starts to get old and wear out, and it'll last you for 6 months. Okay? It's way better than anything you can buy. So I cover the kitchen counter with paper towels. I lay out the graphite. I spend hours putting it on, and then when it's all on, I take lighter fluid and a paper towel. Okay? I wet the lighter fluid with the paper towel, and I go in with a circular motion and set all that graphite. It's amazing. It's amazing. Here's a piece of graphite that I made right here. See this? Anybody else? Now you're going to see my studio. It started out when we first moved into this house. I had a loft and I was going to paint up there. Well, that didn't last. Hi, I'm Ann Abgott. Some of you have taken classes from me. You've seen me on Zoom. You've watched me do demos over the years for Florida Watercolor, but I thought for something different, I would show you all where I paint my studio in my happy place. This all started when I moved into here in 25 years ago, put in a loft, and that was going to be my studio. This is the bay. That's Anna Maria Island over there, and that's the Manatee Bridge. So I live in paradise. I'm so grateful every day when I get up and I look out, and I'm still healthy and happy, and I live in paradise. So here's the loft. I put in a large table, which is where I was going to paint. I bought out a frame shop, a frame and mat shop. I bought up all their old dropouts from their cut mats. So I have all kinds of pieces, and I use those all the time to cut small mats. I have my own mat cutter, very basic one because I'm not very technical. That's how this started. This is full of materials. Every flat surface has a pile of something, and every pile means something. So this is stuff in progress. Then we went into the eaves. These are all pre-cut mats that I bought years ago from Florida Frame. So the mats are pre-cut to go with the frames that I have. I tried very hard not to start a painting on a piece of paper that won't fit into a mat and a frame that I already have in the house. With what's going on with the cost of matting and framing, it's just beyond everything. So I make that a rule that I don't do that. So I have backing board and pre-cut frames and some frames. Most of my frames come rolled up like this because I use metal frames. I made that mistake years ago buying frames that were already put together, wooden frames, and they're a nightmare to store. So that's the framing and the matting. Because of the cost of everything going so high, I started hoarding watercolor paper. So whenever I see a good deal, I buy it. I buy a lot of stuff from Cheap Joe's. But this is all my watercolor paper. I keep it out in the air-conditioned room. These are my next paintings. These are the two next paintings that I'm going to do. They're already on the thumb drive, and I will be putting them onto full sheets of paper. So that's the next step. I have a system where I can shoot a picture in my bedroom in a setup that I'm going to show you in a minute. I can take that photograph, work on it, get it the way I want it to look, transfer it to a thumb drive, and after taking the picture, be up here 5 minutes later doing the drawing. I do a lot of drawing, I do a lot of tracing, but I also project. I have a projector here that I use. I project onto this nasty looking wall, but all of these tapes are real important. So I project on here. I have another projector out there that's above and shoots down, but I don't particularly like it. There's something about projecting a large image on a full sheet of paper and going shape by shape. I do a lot of planning when I'm doing the drawing or the projecting. And I can see where one value moves into another. Downstairs from the loft, I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photographs. I never throw anything out. Right now I'm working on a painting from a photograph I took 20 years ago. It was 4x6 photograph. I have these so-called end tables that are that one and this one, and they are full to the brim with photographs. Don't frame everything. I don't frame anything really if it's going to go into a show until it's accepted in a show. Okay, this is my granddaughter in New York. It's a very old painting, but I'm leaving her that in my will. And then there is a pile over here. I don't put anything in this pile unless it's finished. I do tend to go in and fix things. All the time I go in and fix things. So now I'll take you down through the rest of the place. I took this haul and took the framed paintings and hung them on the wall. They're in the standard sizes that I paint in. And when I get a piece that's in a show, gets into a show and needs to be framed, I will take the existing paintings and mats out and circulate them, circulate the paintings. Saks Fifth Avenue, that's the shoe department at Saks in Sarasota. This is New York City, some boys taking a break. That won me some nice awards. They don't all work out the way you want them to, so you have to just keep painting. The Apple building in New York City, which I understand is no longer there. These are square formatted paintings. I work square and rectangular, long, skinny. I'm doing this in a Cheap Joe's workshop in August. This is Bryant Park in New York City. This is Punta Gorda. That frame is off the wall right now because if I get one of my coconuts into San Diego, I will move the coconut painting into this frame and mat because this fits my full sheet painting. Setting up my own still lifes. Right now, I'm working on a whole set of paintings using glasses, bourbon, and I'm using golf balls and scorecards from different country clubs. I have some paintings done, and I have a whole set more that I'm going to do using the bourbon and the glasses. I'm going to create a still life. Now I take that picture and I take multiple pictures. I take them with the lights on, I take them with the lights off, I take them with the curtains drawn. So once I take that photograph and I like it, I then go and sit down in my den and play with it on my phone. It's my phone that I use the most. And I play with it with the edit button on my phone or my iPad. Everybody has an edit button, whatever kind of a phone brand you've got. And I play with it till I get what I like. And then I go into my den and I take that photograph from my phone and put it on my thumb drive. And then I walk up the stairs to the loft with the thumb drive and stick it in my projector and I'm ready to go. Now, the only time I ever project is when it's over a half sheet. I tend to draw my half sheets, and if they're smaller, I'm doing them for classes, I trace them. That's what this room is used for. My kids are gonna kill me because I never throw anything out. I have wine bottles with interesting labels. I have corks with different sizes. I have everything. Oh, here's I just did a workshop for Cheap Joe's, silver with chocolate covered strawberries. Well, they weren't really strawberries, but they were rubber. So these are all my fake fruit. I have tons of it. So anyway, and finally, this is where I paint. This is my happy place. I mentioned earlier that everything, it has a pile and I put everything together, and this pile right here are paintings that are almost finished and I'm not happy with and I need to fix them. Or paintings that I already have the drawing done. There's the photograph, there's the drawing, and it's attached to the paper so that I don't have to look for things. And then over here is the table that I painted. All right, right now I decided to paint an old photograph. I mentioned that earlier. And I took this photograph probably 20 years ago, two beach babes. And I did the painting and sold it. But I decided now that I'm doing a lot of work on cradle boards that I would do it again. I'm working a lot with granular paints, exploring some new Horadem Schminky granular paints, which I'm kind of excited about. And then because I had taken a photograph many years ago, again, of white pelicans. And I keep everything in one plastic sleeve. So everything in here means something to this painting. I have the enlarged ones. I have black and whites of color. Like here's a painting I'm going to do right here. I wouldn't even begin to think of painting that without the black and white. And that tells me how much paint to put where. So everything's organized. I'd like to tell you all that I start one painting and stick with it until it's absolutely finished, and I don't. I'm terrible. I get bored. If you take me away from something for more than a week, I lose interest. But right now I'm really jazzed and very excited about painting these pelicans, these white pelicans with some unusual colors. This is one of the original photographs. Well, this is how far I've come with value in color. Those are pictures that I took years ago, at least 20 years ago, out in a boat somewhere. And I managed to get that to that. So anyway, this is where I paint. All of the background watercolors or sky, whatever you want to call it, are all done with those three colors. Because I knew I was going to be using a lot of that paint. I pre-mixed them in jars. So I have used all three of those, mingling those colors onto the paper. I work on a large palette. It's called a Studio palette by Magello. I have this palette and I have another palette that goes in my car. I leave it in my car because I work out of the same, I have two exact same palettes. Yes, the blues are all together, the yellows are all together, but I know where those colors are. So I have two exact palettes. As I said, I'm mixing a lot of my paints in jars. These are the jars that I happen to like. And I actually started labeling them so that I would know what was in them, but I don't even need to do that. I know my colors and I know what I use so really well now that I could just open it and tell. So I have all my yellows together. I have all my blues together, and there's the reds. They screw on, they hold a goodly amount of paint, and they don't leak. When a tube of paint gets down to the very ends, and it looks like it's empty, and you've squeezed it, and you've done all that, okay? What I do is I cut the end of this off with scissors and I split it with a razor blade. I then cut it into chunks, peel it open, and I put it into an empty one of these. An empty jar. All the metal, the paper, and everything that I've got in my hand, all cut up in little pieces. I fill the jar 3/4 full with water, put it on my kitchen counter, and leave it there for a week or so, and every time I go by, I shake it to mix the paint. So that's how I conserve my paints. You put them in the jar. If the air does get in and they dry up a little bit, you just reactivate them with water. Okay, one last thing. I also did put in Murphy beds, because I also was going to try to paint in here. That didn't work either. But I did put up these moldings on the walls so that I can put paintings up there. They're just pre-cut molding that you buy at Office Depot. And all of these drawers and cupboards are full of stuff. I want for nothing. I'm doing a lot of cradle boards, so when I get the cradle boards and I buy them on Amazon, and I paint them and keep them all sort of organized. So again, these are paintings that I never finished that I might use the paper again. A lot of times I will take a painting that I never finished, and Anne says to Anne, okay, are you going to finish that? Probably not. Anne turns it over and uses the other side. with the cost of paper the way it is, it's a real good thing to keep your paper clean on the other side. So listen, I want to thank you all for putting up with me. And again, for the years that you've supported me and with the workshops and Florida Watercolor for having me do this demo. I really appreciate it. I'm 85 years old and healthy as a horse, and I get excited every day about what I'm going to paint. Don't paint unless you're excited about it or challenged. Either way, I love to be challenged. Thank you very much. Hope to meet you all at the convention.